Speaking of crazy, politically motivated witch hunts, did you see this latest story today that now there's a new government investigation of Elon? They're investigating him for supposedly Tesla was going to build him a glass house, which he has basically said is ridiculous. It's not true. So the administration, I guess to turn a phrase, people who live in glass houses shouldn't be investigating glass houses. You have the Biden administration now. The latest revelations is that Biden was using a pseudonym in
for
emails.
5,000 emails. And
he was emailing Hunter Biden under the name Robert Peters. Why would you do that about Burisma? So this is how they were communicating. First, Biden said he
that's
knew
some
nothing
serious CIA
about
level.
Yeah. Well, first Biden said, remember,
at yahoo.com.
First Biden said, I don't know anything about my son's business. Then it turns out, based on the sworn testimony of Devin Archer, who is Hunter Biden's partner, that Biden participated in over 20 phone calls where he would call in when they were in the room with clients to, quote, be the brand. And now we find out that Biden was communicating with Hunter about Burisma using a pseudonym account, basically a burner account, under the name Robert Peters.
All allegedly.
Okay, but this is what the Comer investigations turned up.
It's certainly not looking good. And as you said,
so
this
my
is all
point is
partisan
people who live in glass houses shouldn't be investigating glass houses.
Here's the thing. If you're going to evaluate, and listen, obviously I'm biased, but if you're going to investigate Tesla over this, people can buy and trade the stock however they want. There seems to be some Biden administration, jihad against Elon. They're going after him for this and
totally. Well, no, remember a week or two ago,
they wouldn't invite him to the EV summit. I mean, it's all.
Well, I think that's where the whole thing started. Is that they wouldn't invite him to the EV summit because they're not a union shop, and then Elon spoke out about that. Remember, Biden introduced the CEO of GM, giving her credit for launching the whole EV revolution. So Elon criticized the administration for that. But I think the main reason why they don't like him is because what he's done with free speech on Twitter.
Yeah.
This glass house investigation is the second one. The one that happened last week is they're investigating SpaceX for supposedly screening out foreign nationals in the hiring process. They are saying,
wait a second.
The DOJ is alleging that SpaceX was hiring too many Americans and they needed to hire more refugees.
My head's spinning.
Even though there is a law called...
not refugees.
No,
non-nationals.
No, refugees.
Wait. A refugee is somebody fleeing a country
Nick,
because of political persecution. Where did the term refugees come from?
No, it is a term.
A refugee is somebody fleeing a country because of political persecution. Why would they use that term?
The DOJ sued SpaceX basically for DEI foot faults. They said that there was not enough refugees and asylum seekers that were being adequately considered and being hired by SpaceX. The problem with that, as it turns out, is that the DOJ is not even allowed to hire asylum seekers. And refugees.
Well, no, SpaceX is governed under the same laws because it's a rocket company as advanced weapons contractors.
Of course.
And the whole industry has been under the belief for many years that they could only hire American citizens and green card holders for these very sensitive jobs.
Of course.
What happened is earlier in the year, the Biden administration released what they called a clarification. Here, I'll post this. Nick, can you pull this up? So the U.S. DOJ Civil Rights Division released this, again, what they called a clarification, how to avoid immigration-related discrimination when complying with U.S. export control laws. The export control laws is what governs rocket companies and weapons contractors. It's basically the companies that are involved in these sensitive national security areas. Until now, the government was pretty clear that you were only supposed to hire U.S. citizens and green card holders, what they call U.S. persons.
What's the motivation here, Sachs? Explain to me the motivation.
It's crazy because they have this crazy idea that these companies, these national security companies, should be hiring more refugees and asylum seekers.
Wait.
Even though this is the definition of a national security risk. But the really crazy thing, so first of all, I think this update that they issued, this is lawmaking, okay? They called it a clarification, but this is a Biden administration making new law through,
that's not the process
an administrative agency.
Yeah.
I think this is a crazy law. It's really the opposite of what we should want, which is more Americans getting jobs.
But Sachs, can I ask you a question?
But what they've done with this lawsuit is they're going back, and remember, the key here is that was only issued in April of this year. They've gone back and said that from 2008 to 2022, SpaceX is governed by this new understanding. So they're basically making it retroactive.
Okay, putting aside this legalese here for a second, I just want to talk first principles. If you were a foreign government and you wanted to infiltrate some company like SpaceX or Andro or whatever, would it not be easier to send a quote unquote refugee to America
especially
to get in versus flipping an American who already works there? It should be a much easier process.
Especially
so this makes no sense.
Right, because especially since all you have to do is go to the hole in the wall in Yuma, Arizona, as RFK Jr. showed, and you just mention the word asylum, like the cartel has taught you to, and all of a sudden you're a refugee, you're in. They give you a piece of paper that tells you you're going to be in court in 3 years, but you're in. Thousands of people, tens of thousands, millions of people have done this.
Also, another pragmatic question, Freeberg. How many people who are coming in as asylum seekers have the advanced degrees or background to work at Andro, SpaceX? I don't know, pick an aerospace weapons-based company. Like, what percentage of refugees do you think coming across the southern border or whatever border they're coming in would actually have those qualifications? So anyway, this seems insane.
Well, and so, Jake, you raised an interesting point, because I think one of the really unusual things about this DOJ lawsuit against SpaceX is that the remedies they're seeking are unprecedented. What they've said is anybody who was screened out as part of this process was entitled to back pay, lost wages, since they were screened out. So in other words, it assumes that every single one of those people would have been hired.
Would have gotten the job, when in fact they probably hire 1 out of 1,000 or 1 out of 100 applicants gets hired.
Right.
So it's absurd.
And if they could have gotten a job at SpaceX, as we all know, their bar for hiring is incredibly high, they probably didn't have damages because they could probably get jobs at 10 other companies as well.
Oh my God. The Biden administration is just like self-inflicted wounds here. This is so dumb.